Hello, welcome back. In this video, I thought I'd show you a little extension to materials management, and that is UV unwrapping. Now, as you probably know, in Blender and all the other 3D packages, objects are three-dimensional, but sometimes you have an image texture, a two-dimensional object that you have to get on top of your object so that it actually looks like a real object, and that's what we're going to do now with a book. I have a nice book called Agincourt, and it tells about the classic battle of 1314 in the north of France, and I thought I'd like to make a book object here in Blender. So I will add a mesh, a cube, and I will make the size of the object 18 centimeters by 13 centimeters by 2.3, which is the actual size of the book. Here we go. There's nothing there. It's just a suitable object to make into a book. Before you do any sort of UV unwrapping, you need to apply all transforms, location, rotation, and scale, because if you do not do these, you will still be UV unwrapping the cube, which was 2 by 2 by 2 centimeters, and it is nothing like my book. So I will now apply all transforms, and now I can do the actual unwrapping. To do this, you go to the UV editing, and in here you can see that the object is already selected, and by default Blender is unwrapping all the sides of the book into these faces here. So if you pick a face, you go to face selection mode and you pick that face is that one, that face is that one, and that one is that, and so on. So all of the faces look like this, but as you can see, the shape of the faces is not the correct one. So we have to do a new UV unwrap. To do that, all you need to do is to hit the U key, and when you have this menu open, you can either unwrap, sometimes it works, but usually you want to use the Smart UV project, and that is going to make a nice representation of your 3D object in a 2D format. So click on that and select, let all of these settings be as they are, and then click unwrap. And after the Smart UV project, you can see that your object is now properly unwrapped in the right sizes. So all of the book looks like this. This is the top cover, the back, and these are the ends of the book. One of these is the spine, and these are the pages over here and over here. Now, to do this, I had to prepare an image that has all the parts of the book, and I can do that. I can get it here by opening it from my Blender patterns, and as I seem to remember, it's called Agincourt UV PNG. Now, to make these, all you have to do is to find the part that you want to have on your mesh. I have the cover, the back cover, the spine, and this object here is where I scanned the ends of the book, like the pages. This is the pages, another pages, and this is the third face that has pages on it. But first, let us find our cover, the book cover. When I click on that in here, in this editor, it will select that corresponding UV map, and I can then hit A to select everything, and V to move it here on top of my cover. I'll place it there. And then in here you can say that you can pick vertices, or you can pick an edge, or you can pick a face. Now I want to move these two edges closer to the actual cover. So I will go into edge edit mode, select this edge and say GY, that is the vertical axis. Click on this one and say GX because that's the horizontal one. I go into the right place and hit enter, just like click on my mouse, and that is now where the face of the book is going to be. Then this is the back cover. So I select it here and I go in here and I say A to select all and G to move it to resize a little. So I'm going to C, yes, and G again to move it to the right top left hand corner like so. Pick this edge and move it in the up direction, and then pick this edge and move it in the other direction. See, I did not say G and X, and that's why over here at the top I now have a mismatch and I have to move it up G and Y to make it absolutely vertical. Yes. If you are not sure whether you have your vertices leveled, you can always go into the vertex select mode, select those two vertices and say scale Y0, and now they are totally level. The next thing I want to do is my spine, and I'll move the spine by hitting A and G, place it in here, select these vertices, G and Y, select these vertices and G, X to make it properly aligned. Nice, and then this is just the end edge of the book, and it is somewhere here, it's over here. Now I need to rotate that 90 degrees. That's easy enough. When it's selected, say rotate and 90 because there is no axis. You can only rotate around the Z axis here, so you don't have to explicitly say the axis you want to rotate around. And V and X, and this is the right size for that. Go in here. Same thing happens here. Rotate A for all. Rotate 90. G. Rotate 90. Enter. G into the right location. And select these two and GX to the right place. And enter will finish that operation. And we only have this edge in here. It's over there on the top. A, G, R 90. Go a bit closer. And with G, move it to the right place. Select those two vertices and GX. Move it out here. Nice. So we have all our faces lined out in the proper places. The next thing we're going to go to do is create a material for this object. So we go away from UV editing, we go into the shader, and in here you go to your material and click on new, and this will create material for you. See, there's the material output node in here, and there's the principal BSDF shader, which is what you should use if you don't have any other needs. So you need to add an input node as a, you have to add an image texture. So texture / image texture, place it in here, and you connect the color connector to the color base color, but nothing happens until you go in here. And since we are in this file, we already have used the AsynCore UV PNG file. You can click on that and you can see that your object will then have the proper materials. Now you can see that there are two problems. First of all, this one here is not properly aligned. I made a mistake when I was making this this Photoshop file that has the spine. There are these two white parts that are not actually part of the spine. And also our back cover is the wrong way around. To fix this, we go back to UV editing. We find the spine. And in here, we go and we resize our spine like this. GX move to the left and then select these two, GX and move to the right. And now when we go in here and we turn on the shader, we can see that the spine is now properly laid out. And the other problem was that the back cover, this one, is the wrong way around. Well, now that it is selected in this editor, you go into this editor, hit A to select all, and rotate 180 degrees. And now your back cover is the same as the front cover. And you can see that if you rotate the object, rotate along the x-axis, oops, I'm in edit mode. Yeah, rotate along the x-axis. You can see that the book is now the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. So this is how you do an image texture for any object. You create the mesh and you create the image texture. Then you go into UV editing. You do the UV unwrap. You align the faces with the proper parts on your object in the UV map, and then you create the material. And when you go into shading, you have the material output node, you have your shader node, and then you need to have the AsynCore UV PNG. And because this is already laid out, it doesn't need any other parts. And if you want to be absolutely certain, if you want to, or if you need to scale any of the stuff, you can add another node in here for the transformations, scaling and turning and aligning, but usually you don't need that. Just as a bonus, I thought I'd show you how you can export this object, this book object, which has the nice textures and everything, how you can export it into a file format called GBL, or GLB actually, because GLB is the file format that you can upload to web services and show your 3D object in any service that can read GLB files. To do that, we have to do a thing called bake. And baking means the preparation of your materials so that they have the texture coordinates matched with the object so that they can be used by other programs besides Blender. It's just a way of really like baking the textures on top of the mesh so that they actually become one element and you don't have to worry about your object anymore if you export this into another program. It's also a good idea to do this if you are going to export these images into use, for example, in Unity or some other game engine. They have to be baked because in Unity you cannot have a separate file like this one here. This is a separate file. You can't have this, it has to be baked into the object itself. So to do that, we have to do two things. First of all, we need a blank image texture as the target of the bake operation. To do that, you say Shift A and you say texture, image texture, and you click on the new button here, and it's 1024 by 1024, and you call it bake. And it will create a new image called bake. Now, do not connect it to anything. Leave it as it is. It just has to be there, an image called bake, and it has to be blank. So after that, we can go to our render tab, change the render engine into cycles, and now we have a new option here called bake. Now, the settings that you see here can be left as they are for the moment. Of course, if you want to do some high quality, high spec stuff, then you have to understand what these parts are here. But for me, I will just leave it as a diffuse, and I'll leave all the other parts as they are. And now when I click on bake, it's going to bake the image texture of the objects so that it becomes a very nice image texture for this object. So I will click bake, and you can see down here, you can see the texture bake. It's going to take some time. I'm going to stop the recording for a while so it doesn't take that much time. So I'll just pause it now and I'll be back when it's done. Okay, now we have baked our object, and I'll show you what we can do now. We can lose this texture node and connect the new node that has the bake image in it into the base color, and we are back with the book very nicely. So let me export this as a GLB file, and I'll show you a service where you can place the file. You go to File and you say Export, and you pick the last one, .glb, .gltf, and we will export the scene as a GLTF 2.0 file. Click on Save, go to wherever you want to have it. I'm going to put it on my desktop, call it Engine Core, and hit Export GTLF. Now, if I go to the web and I go to hh3dlab.fi/3d show, I click on Choose File, and I click on Engine Core, and I say Open. It will be uploaded under my name onto the server. And when I click on this object here, Engine Core GLB, I can actually see the book in here on my browser without actually inserting any other parts. I don't have to add any lights or anything. This service has a couple of lights in it. And this link is something that I could send this to anybody, and they would be able to see the object that I just made. So this concludes the first foray into your UV unwrapping in Blender.